Welcome back to the SEN WA studio out here at Optus Stadium. Walyalup, or Freo, steadied their season with a mighty win over the GWS Giants at NG Stadium last weekend. They controlled the game pretty much from go to woe. It was a really strong brand of footy. Thanks to Macca's, and Macca's new Tennessee barbecue range is now touring for a limited time. And thanks to Macca's, Walyalup's Executive General Manager of Footy, Joe Brierty, joined us on the show. Joe, welcome.
Thanks, Duff. How you going, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. It must have been very satisfying to see a performance like the one you got out of your players against the Giants at NG Stadium, your first win at that stadium.
Yeah, look, satisfying to probably play the best brand of four-quarter footy that we've done so far this year. I think there's still that element of frustration with the consistency that we're trying to build and when we get those types of games, but I guess it builds real confidence in this group's capability when we focus and value on the right things, that we can be a really competitive team. So that's the element that we look to continue to improve on and build week to week.
Did you feel that you got most things right against Collingwood the previous week and just didn't execute and finish particularly well, or was there something else that changed the dynamic against the Giants?
No, I think you're spot on. I think the performance against Collingwood was a fairly strong performance when you're winning those key statistics around the contest, and obviously inside 50s by the margin we did, and even clearance. It was really our midfield connection and finishing off our work, and obviously that's a real strength of Collingwood. They take their opportunities. So, we felt like it's been a couple of good weeks on the track, and just obviously acknowledge as well that the work that our coaching group are doing at the moment and I guess breaking down the opposition and the areas we're looking to focus on, and giving the playing group some real clear focuses that we want to make sure that we can take away from the opposition, but also coming back to the strengths that we see as our DNA.
One of the things that must have been most pleasing, you bombed away a lot against Collingwood. So while you had a lot of inside 50s, it was kind of just long and high in, and often there was either a decisive spoil or even an uncontested mark taken by a tall Collingwood defender. How did you get the players to realign on that sort of topic and get them to lower their eyes and hit up players like Michael Frederick inside attacking 50?
Yeah, I think it's a ball movement, obviously, from our defensive mid at times, and our ability to continue to have energy on the ball, and obviously our forwards, I guess, lengthening and creating space for each other means that you open up more opportunities, and obviously there's not as many numbers in the forward 50. When you're looking at those repeat entries as well, it's our ability to work together as a forward line group and be selfless in that working together, and probably at times we've had our talls competing against each other rather than working together to open up space. So it was a strength on the weekend that we want to continue to build on.
I was listening to Justin Longmuir on Channel 7 last night. He was asked about Sean Darcy and whether he comes back into the team this week, and he was a little bit coy, I guess. He was certainly keeping his options open. What will you be thinking through before you make the decision, one ruckman or two ruckman against Port Adelaide?
Oh, really, it comes down to what's best for the team, and what's best for the opposition that we're playing, what's best for how Sean pulls up from main training today, and obviously how Jacko's gone last weekend. So all those factors come into it, and ultimately we're picking the side that we think goes out this weekend and can beat Port Adelaide. So we're not sure what it looks like for them. Obviously, Sweet missed last weekend, the last couple of weeks. He's potentially a chance to come in, and they're all factors that come into it, Duff. So Sean's got to get through main training today to make himself available, and then from there we'll assess what we think the best mix looks like going into this weekend.
Is there a temptation, and we've floated this on the show, and I think other shows have floated as well, to put Sean in the waffle for 2 or 3 weeks and let him get really good form and really good momentum, because he came in so quickly because of the hamstring injury to Luke? It's almost felt like he's been chasing the season a little bit in some of his games. Is there a temptation to take him back to the waffle, let him get really good momentum and confidence, and then bring him back up?
Yeah, look, I think all of that comes into it. It was unfortunate that his first game back, Jacko had gone out with his first couple of games back. Jacko was out with a hamstring injury, but he also came in and we look back to the Adelaide fixture. He had a really important role inside around our stoppage and clearance, and when he's up and going, we know the player that we're dealing with. So he has a significant influence on games. So look, that's something that again we take into consideration on the back. He's fully fit. If he's past fit from his knee pulling up well enough after the soreness from a couple of weeks back, then he makes himself available to play. And whether that's AFL or waffle level, as I said, will come down to match committee and ultimately what the team needs this weekend.
One of the interesting things that Luke Jackson does, because of the hunt at ground level, which was so evident and prevalent in the game against GWS, he does give you that extra dimension around the middle at ground level, doesn't he? And at times, I guess it's helped to counter that vision of the Fremantle midfield as a little bit small at times. You've got that big body who's able to get after it on the ground.
Yeah, and I think it's across the board, the makeup of the personnel going through there. I think we've seen Wagner come in at times and play a role with his speed. Bolton, obviously, his agility around the contest and ability to open up space. And even Erasmus on the weekend was really strong in the contest and able to kind of release to the outside, which gives Brayshaw and Sarong an opportunity not have to be the inside all the time. And as you mentioned, Jacko has an ability to kind of play as an extra mid once the ruck contest has obviously occurred. And even Vossi, to an extent, with his follow-up ruck work, he's probably not as kind with his touch in the ruck as others, but obviously building that capacity. But his ability once the ball hits the ground and follow up and his physicality on the contest, we've quite liked.
Yeah, you just got to keep Patrick away from Josh Tracy so he doesn't injure him in a goal celebration. He's sort of he's a guy that needs to celebrate solo. I think Joe. He gets a bit willy-nilly with his celebrations.
Yeah. We'll just keep telling him to run to the wings when it happens.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, go wide, go wide. You mentioned Neil Erasmus. He got a coach's vote on the weekend, which I think must have been really pleasing because he's had to really fight to try and get into the team. And I have this theory, it's a homespun theory, that over the early years of their careers, players either convince themselves they can or they convince themselves they can't. That must be a big step forward for Neil to help convince himself that he can.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got that confidence in his own ability, Neil, and our coaches do as well. It's that consistency that he's looking to build at AFL level. And as you said, it was probably his best performance at AFL level across his career to date, and pleasing that he took that opportunity on the weekend. And it's always going to come down to availability and competition for spots, but from Neil's perspective, to come out and play that role, and he had a really important role on green around stoppage. So there was also his ability to kind of play the team role that we needed and nullify his impact while also having an impact himself. So, yeah, very pleasing for Neil.
Would there be a Port Adelaide player you'd have him earmarked for this week, similar role?
Yeah, it's probably a bit different, and obviously Green's a bigger body.
Yep.
And there's probably the Port Adelaide midfield's probably more that speed and energy on the ball. Wines can play that role at times and be a big body around stoppage, but obviously you've got other dangers and what they look to do with some of their players missing, with Horn Francis going out, whether Rosie looks to spend more time inside or Power Pepper or a few others are in there. So I'm not quite sure what their final makeup will do, but obviously we've got different players that can go to those different roles. Wagner's played on smalls before, and Andy Brayshaw has played roles as well, and then we alluded to and Johnson and Erasmus have done those roles too. So it's great to be able to have that flexibility and consider a variety of options.
Another one who's added great flexibility to your midfield is Shay Bolton. When you got him, you were probably thinking forward who goes in and pinch hits in the midfield, but he's probably played more midfield time in the last 2 weeks and certainly added a different dimension to you there. Is that the way we're going to see Shay used, do you think, between now and the end of the season?
Yeah, look, and he has, you're spot on. I think even our mids are loving having him in there at times, and it's always a balance with building his load over time with his pre-season, having a bit of time off, and he's kind of just, as I said, building week in, week out, and spending more time inside. But look, he opens up space, his ability to use the ball by hand and foot, and also even the flips he's able to do from mid-forward definitely make him very damaging and again across the season, it'll kind of be dependent on what the group looks like and the impact he's having in there versus the impact he has forward, and the likes of O'Meara and Young and Fife and a few others coming back in the coming weeks. We'll kind of assess that and what it looks like for Bolts, but he's definitely having an impact in there when he gets his opportunity.
Where's Nathan O'Driscoll at in terms of having a little bit of a setback on that ankle? Is he a chance to play anywhere this weekend?
Yeah, he'll definitely be a chance to play this weekend. And again, whether that's AFL or Waffle or something, we'll work through this afternoon. But clinically had some testing on Monday and pulled up really well. He just pulled up sore after that initial game back in the Waffle, but functionally he's going really well, and he'll get through main training today and hopefully pulls up well tomorrow to make himself available.
Nathan Fife, what's the return to play date for him?
Yeah, again, he'll do a pretty significant footy circuit this weekend, and all things going well, he'll be available next weekend to play footy. So depending on what that looks like for him, he's had a really good program with hamstring work, had some really specialised programming that's been important to him to make sure that really when he's back available, he's available for full games. So that's going to be important for us, having some of that depth back across the group because we've had a few out of late. It
feels like Cooper Simpson has added a fair bit, and you've changed the balance, if you like, in your defence to get a little bit more run and a little bit more rebound and get another kicker back there. Just how significant has the addition of him to your defence been?
Yeah, it's something that we've been talking about a fair bit, and with, again, Wagner going up into the midfield or playing on the wing in recent weeks, we've been looking for it off half-back because he's probably played that role with his kicking off half-back or his ability to energise and run. And, I think for Cooper, it's his ability just to build his confidence at AFL level to take those opportunities. Been really pleased with how he's been defending one-on-one as well, and his work in the contest, which is an aspect of his game that he was working on when he was playing as a forward as well. But we all know he's very damaging by foot, so to have that in our back half and that we can get the ball in his hands, and whether he's running off half back to handball receive or I think his kick into the corridor so wrong on the weekend just opens up a number of avenues for us. So pleased with how he's gone at AFL level.
Jeremy Sharp has been a really important structure player for you on the wing, and I know that the wing role is a different role now to what it used to be, and it's much about where they are in the structure and how many kilometres they run, their ability to provide cover defence. But he did only have the 3 disposals last weekend. How did you assess his game, and where do you think his form is at?
Yeah, well, it's a similar game to what he played a couple of weeks back, where he only had 5 disposals, and it was a real role-based game. And you alluded to it, Duff. It can be hard at times when I guess you're getting caught playing in straight lines and the ball's not going to the open side as much, and Jeremy does play that open side winger role, so opportunities can be few and far between. I'm sure there were moments in the game where he would have liked to have got on the end of it last weekend, and aspects of his game that he's still looking to build on. But the work that he does defensively and rolling back and supporting our back sevens a really key component of his game, and his off-ball run to close out runners, which is an important part of and a strength of the Giants, was a key part of what we're trying to do on the weekend. So there's always a balance between how much of the footy he's getting and his ability to penetrate and have an impact on the game that way, but we really value what he's been doing to that extent defensively. There's elements of his game that he's still working on and looking to grow, but the selflessness and the trademark focus is something that we've really put a high value on in recent weeks for sure.
Just a quick question before I let you go that's coming on our text line from Carlos. He just wants to know what's the club doing to try and prevent the inconsistencies that have been there a little bit this year after a good win. How do you make sure they're up and about and playing with the sort of intensity they showed against the Giants?
Yeah, it's just not caught in the week to week as well. We need to be really balanced in not driving this element internally where we're trying to get up for a game each weekend. It needs to be our preparation Monday through Friday, and the consistency of the standards and behaviours that we want to drive. Because ultimately, in our ability to prepare for the opposition and our players' ability to prepare for their individual roles and valuing the right things, we know when we have a team-based contribution and focus on delivering our brand and DNA on the weekend, it sets us up to have a really strong four-quarter performance. So they're the key elements that we're looking to really prioritise within the playing group at the moment, and whether that's win or lose, having a real focus on anchoring when we get into early in the week and look to learn from aspects of our game and improve and prepare ourselves for the opposition. I think if you get caught in the ups and downs of week to week in the AFL industry, we're finding that we're seeing this year in particular that teams are getting caught out on the weekend at different times when they're off by 5%. So our consistency comes from our focus in our preparation during the week, and ultimately being really confident if we process doing the right things that we know are important to the way we want to play and take away the strengths of the opposition. And we'll hopefully have strong performances.
Joe, wish you all the best this weekend. Hopefully there's another big victory, and keep on tracking towards that top 8. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Anytime. Thanks, Duff.
Joe Brierty, he is the Walyalup Executive General Manager of Footy. Coming to us thanks to Macca's. The new Tennessee barbecue range has arrived at Macca's, made with juicy 100% Aussie beef. But hurry, it's only touring for a limited time. We'll be back with more after the break.